ඔෆිස් එකේදී විතරක් නෙවෙයි මම දැන් ගෙදරදීත් IDD calls ගන්න SLT phone එකේ.
ඔබේ නිවසේ SLT දුරකථනය දැන් IDD පහසුකම සහිතයි.
Good evening. Tonight, finally a decision and it's business as usual. The parliamentary group of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party decides on staying with the national government. A fresh start. Cabinet co-spokesman Dr. Rajitha Senaratne says that the new cabinet will be appointed before the 14th and 6 SLFP ministers who voted against the Premier will be axed.
Those are the subjects actually where those ministers who voted against, they were responsible.
Lights out. Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka says the delay in the implementation of the power generation expansion plan could incur losses in billions to the country.
Every month you delay the implementation, it costs us about more than 3 billion rupees.
Making international headlines, tragedy in North Africa. Over 250 people were killed when a military plane crashed shortly after takeoff in Algeria. And senators poke Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg in the US Capitol to answer questions regarding privacy.
Would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
It is 9 o'clock on the dot. Welcome to First at 9, Ada Derana's premier English news coverage. Hello everyone, I'm Mahesh joining tonight. Later on in the show, we will have a full report on Mark Zuckerberg's trip to the US Capitol. But first, we begin here at home, finally, with a decision from the SLFP. A critical discussion on the future of the national government is currently underway at the President's house. A special meeting will determine whether the Sri Lanka Freedom Party would remain in the national government or not. The meeting is being held between President Maithripala Sirisena and ministers and parliamentarians representing the SLFP. Headed by President Maithripala Sirisena, the discussion is reported to be about making a decision on whether the SLFP would remain in the national government or sever ties with it. We will bring you more developments on this story during our bulletin as and when we get it. Well, earlier in the day, other members of the SLFP met with President Maithripala Sirisena. During this discussion, it has been decided that all members of the party, including parliamentarians who supported the no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, must be given the opportunity to remain within the national government.
Several discussions were held regarding the request made by 16 ministers and parliamentarians of the SLFP who supported the no-confidence motion against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe to sit with the opposition in Parliament. Meanwhile, views had been expressed at the SLFP Working Committee meeting that all members of the party must sever ties with the national government. However, no definite decision on these views had been made. It was in this backdrop that the 16 SLFP members who voted against the Premier at the vote of no confidence met with President Maithripala Sirisena at the Presidential Secretariat today. It has been decided during discussions that all members, including those who supported the motion, must be given the chance to remain in the national government. Political sources claim that this decision was informed to Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe this afternoon.
The 3-year-long prevailing drought has had an impact across various sectors, with the effects felt by the agricultural sector in particular coming under the microscope, as it has left the lives of the farming community in jeopardy. This has resulted in various parties criticizing the government for its alleged lack of attention to the matter. With Sri Lanka being a country which relies on hydropower, lack of rainfall is also having a resounding effect on the country's power sector. In a bid to address this, Minister of Power and Renewable Energy Ranjith Siambalapitiya stated that a mixed power generation plan will be presented to the Cabinet for its immediate approval. It is also in this backdrop the Ceylon Electricity Board proposed their own plan titled Least Cost Long-Term Power Generation Expansion Plan to tackle the power crisis. Tonight, First at 9, take a look into their developments.
The prevailing dry weather conditions in the country has reduced the national hydroelectricity production to 15%. To address the deficit in power generation, the Norotchole coal power plant and other thermal power plants are continuously being used, with them contributing up to 80% of the national grid. In the event where electricity demand is higher than the supply, the Ceylon Electricity Board also resorts to purchasing power from private power producers. In a background note produced by the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, it states that the cost of emergency power purchased by these private producers in 2016 amounts to over 16 billion rupees, with the cost rising to over 26 billion rupees in 2017. As a solution to the current power crisis and increasing costs associated, the Ceylon Electricity Board proposed the least cost long-term power generation expansion plan for the period of 2018 to 2037. It consists of a mix of renewable and natural gas solutions to the energy crisis. Despite an official from the Ministry of Power and Renewable Energy who insisted to remain anonymous, claiming to First at 9 that the proposed plan has not yet been approved by the Public Utilities Commission, the Director General of the Commission insisted that such is not the case and the plan was in fact approved last year. The Public Utilities Commission even backed up their claim with a document.
Public Utilities Commission has approved the least cost generation expansion plan for 2018 to 2037 in July 2017. So that plan has about 4,600 megawatts of natural gas plants, 7,000 megawatts of renewable power plants. If you look at the next 3 years from 2018, 19 and 20, there are 320 megawatts of heavy fuel plants, 300 megawatts of natural gas plants, 360 megawatts of solar power plants and 270 megawatts of wind power plants. Apart from that, we have mini hydros, biomass power plants.
The Director General of the PUCSL also warned that the delay in the implementation of the power generation expansion plan could incur losses in billions to the country.
The implementation part is with Ceylon Electricity Board. I think the tendering process has taken a lot of time. About 6 months back, Commission has come out with a report on the losses due to the delay in implementation. And the delay of implementation of these generation plants in the long-term generation expansion plan over the last 18 months is about 50 billion rupees. Every month you delay the implementation, it costs us about more than 3 billion rupees.
Meanwhile, Minister of Power and Renewable Energy Ranjit Siyabalapitiya yesterday elaborated on his plan to get the cabinet approval for a mixed power generation plan to tackle the power crisis.
There's a drought for 3 years now. It's a challenge to supply electricity at the usual tariffs. But we haven't increased electricity levies or resort to power cuts. We've presented a mixed power generation plan now. It consists of solutions such as fossil fuel, renewable energy, water, wind power, solar power and so on. I got the Economic Committee to agree with me today about presenting this at the next cabinet meeting for approval and for its immediate implementation.
Well, earlier on we brought you the details with regard to the meeting that took place with President Maithripala Sirisena and the SLFP parliamentary members. Now, we have views of the parliamentary members of the SLFP who decided that they must sever ties with the national government. They expressed their views to First at 9.
We are of the strong stance that SLFP must sever ties with the national government for the sake of the party's future. The two-thirds majority was there to make necessary constitutional changes, but we see that these priorities are not met. If they are under the impression that this is their party, I'd like to say that there were those from the UNP who are planning on supporting the motion. We hope they will join with us in the future. There are divisions because there are two political parties here. President is of the stance that all SLFP members must stay together, and we are also of the same view. We will work according to the decision of the party. We've asked permission to resign from our ministerial portfolios, so we will work according to the decision taken at the Central Working Committee meeting. There are major problems within the party, although it doesn't look like it on the surface. A definite solution will only be given to this situation after the next general election.
Now, the United National Party's Reforms Advisory Committee has decided to fill all vacant positions as well as to make a personal change to top post within the party before the 30th of this month. This decision was taken when the committee convened today for its maiden session.
The Reforms Advisory Committee of the United National Party, which was appointed to make recommendations on appointing personnel to the party's top positions, had its maiden session at Temple Trees today. The committee was appointed in a secret ballot last Saturday, the 7th. During the discussions today, it has been decided to appoint personnel to top positions of the party, including the posts of General Secretary, Chairman and Treasurer, prior to the 30th of this month. Furthermore, it has also been decided to hold the UNP's May Day rally on the 9th of May at the Sukatadasa Indoor Stadium. The Reforms Advisory Committee of the UNP is set to convene on the 19th next.
It was a preliminary discussion today. It was proposed to have an agenda for this as well. We also talked about appointing a secretary, along with a media secretary, a secretary of promotion, and others for the committee in a bid to devolve the powers of the secretary. About 4 of us couldn't participate today due to various reasons, with some of them being abroad. It was State Ministers Eran Wickramaratne and Ajit P. Pereira, as well as Ministers Gayantha Karunatilaka and Sajith Premadasa.
Well, we have breaking news. Just a short while ago, the 16 ministers who voted in favour of the no confidence motion against the Prime Minister has decided to vacate their positions within the government and to leave the government. We are closely watching that story and the outcomes of that particular news. Once again, that is that the 16 ministers who voted in favour of the no confidence motion against the Prime Minister has now decided to leave the government and vacate their positions. We will keep a close watch on that and bring you the very latest as we get them. Let's move on with the other local stories we have for you. Minister of National Coexistence, Dialogue and Official Languages Mano Ganeshan says a majority of political parties are of the view that the upcoming provincial council elections should be held under the preferential voting system. The minister said that the matter was taken up during a discussion between Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and representatives of minor political parties this afternoon as a number of local authorities constituted following the recent polls under the new ward system proved to have issues.
We brought a new system. The intention was good, but now we are realizing that the new system has created many problems. Even after 2 months, some local authorities have not yet been set up. If we are to learn from that experience and to make a new system, it will take more time. We do not want to postpone the elections. We will go for the next elections under the old system. During that, we can study the new system. All the parties in the United National Front agreed to go ahead with the old system. We also heard that even former President Mahinda Rajapaksa has agreed for the old electoral system. No one there wanted to postpone the election.
Cabinet co-spokesperson Dr. Minister Rajitha Senaratne states that the much talked about cabinet reshuffle will come before the 14th of this month. Speaking further, the minister said that not all ministers in the cabinet will be changed, but the cabinet, however, will take oath as a new cabinet. The minister made these remarks at the cabinet media briefing today in response to questions raised by journalists.
Decisions that were given cabinet approval was announced by Cabinet co-spokesperson Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne at the weekly cabinet media briefing today. Among the proposals given cabinet approval is the decision for an action plan for expediting the activities related to exploration and production of petroleum. Thereby, Sri Lanka will call for fresh bids for an oil exploration block off the northwestern coast in May this year, where traces of natural gas was discovered in 2011. Cabinet co-spokesperson Rajitha Senaratne stated that following a proposal by Minister of Petroleum Resources Arjuna Ranatunga, the cabinet also agreed to enter into agreements with global oil companies for land and offshore exploration work along the eastern coastal belt. Meanwhile, Minister Dr. Rajitha Senaratne was pressed with questions on the much talked about cabinet reshuffle by journalists at today's cabinet media briefing.
A new cabinet in the sense, it is not that all ministers would change. There are issues with portfolios subject-wise. Portfolios are allocated scientifically, but following the changes, the cabinet will be sworn in as a new cabinet.
14 වෙනිදාට පෙර නවාණ්ඩුවක් හදනවා නම් දැන් හෙට සහ අනිද්දා දවස් දෙක පමණයි තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට මේ වෙනුව සාකච්ඡා කරලා තියෙන දැමතුමා මේ එතකොට අනිද්දා වෙදි දියුරුම් දෙන්න.
ඔව් අද ශ්‍රී ලංකා
We will get the decision of the SLFP today, and our stance is that those who went against the Prime Minister cannot remain in the cabinet. The 6 ministerial positions will be filled from the remaining SLFP cadre.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ ඉදිරි කණ්ඩායමෙන්
යෙදිනේදී කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ ඇමතිවරු නිදහස් පක්ෂ ඇමතිවරු වර්ජනය කිරීමක් කරා.
ඒක වර්ජනයක් නෙවෙයි.
It wasn't a boycott since they said that they would participate once a collective decision is made. What we say is that we will operate under the theme one leader, one process and one government.
මෙන්න මේ තේමාව යටතේ ඉස්සරහට ක්‍රියාත්මක.
දැන් එතකොට ඇති වෙන තත්ත්වයක් එක්ක පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ විපක්ෂ නායක ධූරය එතකොට ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයට හිමි වෙන්න ඕනේ දැමතුමා දැන්
ඔය ඔක්කොටම වඩා
As a policy, how good is it to have a Tamil leader as the opposition leader? We should learn from history and be pleased that the likes of Sambandhan are sitting with us.
අපිට සහයෝගය දීම ගැන.
Minister, what are the subjects that are most likely to change in the cabinet reshuffle?
No, those are the subjects actually where those ministers who voted against, they were responsible. TN එක කියන්නේ 2015
What the TNA is calling for is the implementation of the promises made in 2015 and especially to hand over land back to the people. They also call for a policy decision on the court cases and to provide relief to them by expediting the decision on missing persons. Sumandiran made a clear statement from Jaffna that they didn't strike a deal with the government. Ultimately, the number rehabilitated and released by the previous government is higher, and they are good deeds which I praise. These are humanitarian issues and not localized to Tamils or Sinhalese.
මානුෂික ප්‍රශ්න විසක් මේ ද්‍රවිඩවත් සිංහලවත් නෙවෙයි.
The Government Medical Officers Association urges President Maithripala Sirisena not to lift the ban on the use and importation of glyphosate. Whilst highlighting another glyphosate bust made by Customs at a media briefing today, Assistant Secretary to the GMOA, Dr. Nalinda Herath, called on the President to consider the adverse consequences of glyphosate use in the country.
The Government Medical Officers Association convened a media briefing today and elaborated on a consignment of glyphosate nabbed by the Customs. Addressing it, Assistant Secretary of the GMOA, Dr. Nalinda Herath, said the consignment is imported from India and it also contains a chemical which is yet to be identified.
Mentioned that 10 tons of glyphosate detected by custom officers few days ago. Last month also similar incident happened, but responsible person was released after charging a small fine. There should be an end of these events. These smugglers should be penalized properly, and media reported that some cabinet ministers are influencing His Excellency the President to lift this glyphosate ban. However, we request the President not to lift the glyphosate ban.
The GMOA also raised its concerns over the delay in recommendations by the Cabinet Subcommittee, which was appointed to deliberate the use of glyphosate.
Last month, a Cabinet Subcommittee was appointed to make recommendations on this issue, but so far recommendations has not been made. Meantime, we have observed some so-called scientists are trying to justify glyphosate usage, so we are in a doubt that they are funded by multinational companies.
Temporary employees of university non-academic staff are warned by the Ministry of Higher Education that they will be considered to have vacated their positions if they fail to report to work before the 17th of April. Now with that, let's take a look at some other stories making news across Sri Lanka.
Minister of Megapolis and Western Development, Partly Champika Ranawaka, says that a light rail system will be developed between Kaduwela and Colombo Fort with the intervention of the ministry. The minister made the remark at a function held in Colombo this morning. A bear cub, which is 1.5 feet tall, was found dead at Malporugama forest at Wahalkada in Horopatana. It was caught in a wire trap set up in the forest. Banana farmers in Suryababa are faced with a situation where they are struggling to sell their harvest. Officials of the Suryababa market in Hambantota have failed to allocate a day for banana sales this week, making it impossible for buyers coming from outstations to get their hands on the harvest. A video of reckless driving by two three-wheeler drivers at night is currently circulating in social media.
Well, we have an update on that breaking news which we brought to you a little while ago. State Minister Lakshmanyappa Abeyewardene says that 16 ministers and parliamentarians, including 6 cabinet ministers of the SLFP who voted in favour of the no confidence motion against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, will vacate all positions held with the government. Now, this was conveyed by the State Minister to media following the special meeting held at the President's house just a short while ago. Now, he said that the president approved a request made by the 16 SLFP members to vacate their positions held with the government. However, the 16 SLFP ministers and parliamentarians are yet to decide whether they will withdraw from the unity government. This decision will be taken at the Central Committee meeting of the SLFP. With that, let's take a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
On to international news now. Facebook's chief executive, Mark Zuckerberg, began the first of two marathon hearings in Washington last afternoon, answering tough questions on the company's mishandling of data. Now, this was Zuckerberg's first appearance before Congress, prompted by the revelation that Cambridge Analytica, a political consulting firm linked to the Trump campaign, harvested the data of an estimated 87 million Facebook users to psychologically profile voters during the 2016 US presidential election. Our First at Nine's Chief International Affairs Analyst Anuradha Herath is monitoring the story for us tonight and reports from New York. Anuradha.
Thank you, Mahesh. So we saw today Mark Zuckerberg, the head of Facebook, testify for about 5 hours in front of about half the U.S. Senate, which is quite significant. That doesn't always happen all the time here. And they talked about a range of issues. I thought I'd focus on several issues that are not relevant only to Americans here, but to users of Facebook like us all over the world. The first issue that I wanted to focus on that I know has a specific relevance to Sri Lanka in recent times is about monitoring hate speech on social media. Mark Zuckerberg was specifically asked about what steps Facebook was taking in terms of monitoring and taking action against hate speech on Facebook. And he gave a very practical and realistic answer.
As we're able to technologically shift towards especially having AI proactively look at content, I think that that's going to create massive questions for society about what obligations we want to require companies to fulfill. And I do think that that's a question that we need to struggle with as a country, because I know other countries are, and they're putting laws in place. And I think that America needs to figure out and create the set of principles that we want American companies to operate under.
The second aspect that I wanted to focus on was the fact that they talked about Facebook being a paid version. Mark Zuckerberg was asked about whether there could be a business model that doesn't require advertising. Of course, their platform is based on an advertising model at the moment, and Zuckerberg basically said that there will always be a free version of Facebook, implying the fact that there could be a paid version of Facebook in our future that is free from advertising. So I think that was a significant thing to get from this testimony as well.
You said back then that Facebook would always be free. Is that still your objective?
Senator, yes, there will always be a version of Facebook that is free. It is our mission to try to help connect everyone around the world and to bring the world closer together. In order to do that, we believe that we need to offer a service that everyone can afford, and we're committed to doing that.
Well, if so, how do you sustain a business model in which users don't pay for your service?
Senator, we run ads.
And finally, the aspect of political communication was also talked about, which I think has implications broadly around the world. Several senators were concerned that Facebook itself was politically inclined towards, a particular political affiliation. But of course, Zuckerberg denied this. But even personally speaking, in dealing with Facebook officials in Sri Lanka, dealing with Sri Lanka, I know that sometimes there is some kind of a political bias in terms of how they work with people. So I think this is also going to be an issue that they will have to address in the coming years.
Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No.
If you've messaged anybody this week, would you share with us the names of the people you've messaged?
Senator, no, I would probably not choose to do that publicly here.
I think that may be what this is all about. Your right to privacy, the limits of your right to privacy, and how much you give away in modern America in the name of, quote, connecting people around the world.
Well, at least 257 people have died after a military plane crashed in northern Algeria earlier today. The incident happened shortly after the aircraft took off from Bourefak military airport near the capital Algiers in the morning. Now, most of the dead are army personnel and their families.
More than 250 people, including members of Western Sahara's Polisario independence movement, were killed when a military plane crashed in a field outside Algeria's capital today. Television footage showed crowds gathering around the smoking and flaming wreckage near Bourefak airport, southwest of Algiers, with state TV announcing that a total of 257 people had died in the crash. A member of Algeria's ruling FLN party told a private TV station that the dead included 26 members of Polisario, an Algerian-backed group fighting for the independence of neighboring Western Sahara, a territory also claimed by Morocco in a long-running dispute. The plane was heading to Tindouf, an area on Algeria's border with Western Sahara, but crashed on the airport's perimeter. It is not yet clear what caused the crash, but the Army's Chief of Staff has ordered an investigation and will visit the scene. This is the second deadliest plane crash since 2003.
Here's some other stories from across the world.
The World Health Organization has demanded unhindered access to Douma in Syria to check reports from its partners that 500 people have been affected by a chemical attack there. The US has threatened a forceful response to reports of an attack, but Russia has called this a pretext to attack its ally, Syria. Indian police busted an international narcotics syndicate and seized 29 kilograms of heroin worth $19 million in New Delhi yesterday. After a month-long operation, on March 26th, a smuggler was arrested in West Delhi, followed by arrest of other members of the international syndicate in the subsequent days. Indonesian police say that at least 82 people have died after drinking bootleg liquor that consists of methanol and 96% of pure alcohol. Deaths from such consumption are reported frequently, but the latest toll is among the highest in recent years. According to media, 36 people died in 2016 after drinking locally made liquor. Local people of ancient city Ayutthaya province and foreign tourists kicked off a water-splashing Songkran festival with elephants today against the backdrop of the ancient ruins. The elephants, painted with colorful flowers from trunk to toe, showed no mercy to children and adults alike as they slurped up water and sprayed them in the scorching heat.
Watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
On to sports. Today is the seventh day of the 2018 Commonwealth Games held in Gold Coast, Australia. Today saw India's MC Mary Kom beat Sri Lanka's Dilrukshi Kodituaku in the semi-final, while Sri Lanka's Ishan Bandara beat Lesotho's Thabo Molev in the quarterfinals to advance to the semi-final on Friday.
In the women's boxing 45 to 48 kilogram category, Indian boxing legend MC Mary Kom advanced to the Commonwealth Games final with a comprehensive triumph over Sri Lanka's Anusha Dilrukshi Kodituaku today. Mary Kom prevailed 5-0 in a dull contest where clean punches were few and far. Kom, a 5-time world amateur boxing champion and Olympic bronze medalist from 2012, will now move on to the finals and fight Christina O'Hara of Northern Ireland for the gold medal, while Sri Lanka's Anusha takes the bronze, along with Tamsin Benny of New Zealand. Anusha is the only Sri Lankan boxer to reach 6th in the world rankings and the first boxer, either male or female, to win a Commonwealth medal for Sri Lanka since Albert Pereira's bantamweight silver in the 1950 Commonwealth Games in Auckland, New Zealand. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's Ishan Bandara beat Thabo Molev of Lesotho 4-1 to win the men's 52 kilograms quarter-final at the Commonwealth Games 2018 today. Bandara won the bout with scores of 30-27, 30-26, 30-27, 28-29 and 29-28 on judges' decisions. With at least a bronze medal assured, Bandara will take on India's Gaurav Solanki in the semi-final on Friday at 1:30 p.m. Sri Lanka time.
The Asian Cricket Council has decided to hold the 2018 Asia Cup in the United Arab Emirates. The tournament is due to be held from the 13th to the 28th of September.
The Asian Cricket Council announced yesterday that the 2018 Asia Cup has been moved from India to the United Arab Emirates over Pakistan's refusal to cross the border as relations simmer between the arch-rivals. The biennial event was due to be held in India in September, sparking protests from the Pakistan Cricket Board, who called for the event to be relocated. The tournament will be played between 13th to 28th of September. All matches will be played in the 50-over format with India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Bangladesh and one other team taking part. The sixth team in the event will be determined via a playoff between UAE, Hong Kong, Nepal, Singapore, Malaysia and Oman. This will be the 14th edition of the Asia Cup.
Moving on to the Indian Premier League, two heavyweights of the competition went head-to-head last night with Chennai Super Kings taking on Kolkata Knight Riders. Following a strong batting display from both sides, the match went down to the wire and the Super Kings edged out Knight Riders by 5 wickets with 1 ball to spare. Knight Riders batted first and posted 202 for the loss of 6 wickets. Now in reply, Super Kings got over the line with 5 wickets in hand and a ball to spare, with a tally of 205 for 5. Now here's Renesh Bongso with your weather.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Derana 24/7.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Your temperatures tomorrow will vary between 21 and 30 degrees Celsius. Those living in the districts of Kandy, Batticaloa and Galle will have to endure some humidity, and people in Batticaloa especially may also have to expect some thunder showers as well. Thunder activity also may extend to Mannar, Anuradhapura and Trincomalee. The districts of Colombo, Galle and Kandy will also see some rainy weather accompanied by lightning activity. That's all from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your City by City forecast.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Well, before we end, we want to bring you once again that breaking story we brought you during the bulletin. State Minister Lakshman Yapa Abewardhan says that 16 ministers and parliamentarians, including 6 cabinet ministers of the SLFP who voted in favour of the no confidence motion against Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, will vacate all positions held with the government. This was conveyed by the State Minister to media following the special meeting held at the President's house just a short while ago. However, the 16 SLFP ministers and parliamentarians are yet to decide whether they will withdraw from the unity government. The decision will be taken at the Central Committee meeting to be held very soon. Now with that, we end tonight's bulletin, and before we go, we want to take you to the visuals of rubber tapping, an age-old practice which came to Sri Lanka during the colonial times of the British rule. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.